If I get too close to fish stuff, my whole hands and arms break out in hives. I don't have to eat it. I break out into hives.
Oh my god!
I know it's not funny, but in my head, it's like you turning into a werewolf, and you're just like, like as the scales like shoot up your arms.
A werewolf who can't enjoy his life. Yeah, it's a great time.
A very sleepy werewolf on Benadryl.
Oh no, it's the fucking shellfish moon.
It's Joe the werefish. Welcome back, everyone, to S1E1, the show where each week we pick a different sitcom, watch just the first televised episode, and forgetting anything we might know about the future run of that show, rate it and decide if it's a show we want to greenlight or cancel. This week we're going to be talking about Ghosts. Ooh. Ghosts went 27 episodes over 4 series on BBC One. Today we're talking about episode 1, which is called Who Do You Think You Are?, originally airing April 15th, 2019. So to get things started, I'm Jay Gags. With me as always, the boys, most of them, Joe, Gordo, and Ferg. What's going on, guys? No Nick this week.
Hello.
Yo.
Very inspiring, very long, and a few smutty jokes to keep it light. It's like us.
Truth. Also, we should make it clear we're doing the British version of Ghost.
UK Ghost. UK Ghost meant
UK
meant to say
Ghost.
after the. I didn't know how to say it in the intro in a way that sounded natural.
This week,
So,
everybody, we're doing Ghost.
Ghost
UK.
Yeah, just add a UK at the end, like Chaos UK. Like the band Chaos UK. They're Chaos, but they're from England. It's perfect.
I like Chaos America better.
They were not as good. I will say that when I saw Chaos UK live once, it was the largest belly button I've ever seen on a man in my entire life. The singer was a very heavyset man, and his belly button was maybe 6 inches long. And I don't remember the whole
Like an
set. I just remember
Audi?
going, his belly button's, yo, it was an Audi, all right. Yeah, it was an
Ew.
Audi.
Like a tiny dick?
Bigger than a tiny dick. Probably
Not
as
just a dick.
like a good sized dick, honestly.
How do
It
you,
was pretty intense.
how do you even have that?
No,
I don't know.
All right. Well, anyways,
Starting off with a bang.
yeah. So this is
Great band, bad belly button. What do you want from me?
This is week 2 of our unnamed spooky month. For Halloween, we always do 4. Throughout the month of October, we do 4 paranormal, spooky type shows. You know, so
I have a quick question, though, in that regard. Has anybody here kept watching Mr. Iglesias?
No, because it sucked.
Really? Because I fucking love it. Also, I can't stop singing the theme song in the X-Men.
go back and listen to Mr. Iglesias. Overall, spoiler alert, we gave it the green light. Ferg just hated it.
Yeah, Ferg just didn't like it. I enjoy it very much. I've been watching it all the way through, even though I was not on that episode because I was unable to attend that day. And I can't stop singing the theme song to the X-Men cartoon
I was going to ask you why you did that.
song. Yeah, I just can't stop. My brain just connected the two and I can't stop. But I watched one today as I was getting ready to start. And see, you heard it. And they said Spooky Dookie in it. And I was like, oh, that's so perfect.
That's us.
That's us.
It's like,
This
that's like
is our
our stupid. Well, I don't want to say our because that includes me, but that's like a few of your stupid joke.
This is the Spooky Dookie month. I don't know why we haven't officially named it.
No, we're gonna unofficially. No name for the month. We never. We're already on year 3. We can't name it now. Now it's just gonna be the Halloween.
I mean, if you want to
Spooky
hashtag it
whatever.
Spooky Dookie, maybe we'll get some of that Mr. Iglesias love on it.
By the time we finally get a name for it, we're going to run out of supernatural shows. in
Yeah,
October.
next year. Next year.
No, there's
I got plenty. I got
There is
plenty.
It's getting harder and harder to pick good ones.
It doesn't have to be good ones.
Yeah, it's
That said, I will say this is the English version of a show. I personally have not watched the American version of this show.
Neither have I.
But dare I say, this feels to me mentally by watching the trailer for the American show that this is a reverse Office scenario, where I think the English one is going to be way better than the American one.
Well, stay tuned, everyone, because you'll find the answer to that next year.
52 weeks from now.
So just sit back and wait. And then next year, when we cover the American version of Ghosts, you'll know our direct comparison.
Hopefully it's not identical like I think it is the first episode.
I kind of want it to be. I think it's funner to compare that way.
I think it's probably pretty similar, but the ghosts are obviously very different because it's a different
It's
country.
different ghosts.
Different like history of the country. Yeah, like
That's what I mean. Like, it's a different history of the country. So, like, the people who are, like, from it. Like it's different.
Yeah,
things
it's not
that
gonna be
happen in
proper
history.
English people. Yeah, that makes sense.
I will say though, the genius of this show is to go back as far as to be like, this person was a caveman who lived on the land.
Yeah.
Where it's not about the house, it's about the fucking like the patch of earth. That's very funny.
As far as Ghost goes, Ferg, I think you're the one who initially mentioned it to us. Did you watch it before this, or did any of you guys watch it?
I watched it on one of our trips to WrestleMania on the plane there. They had the British version. I don't think the American version even came out yet. And I watched, I think 3 episodes going there and 3 going back. But I don't remember which.
The beauty of the UK series, they're all much shorter than the American, so you can it's easy to binge through.
Yeah, like a whole season is 3 episodes.
And then, yeah, the two of you guys, did you guys ever watch it?
No.
Yeah, I had not even heard of this. And I love British comedy. I love BBC shows, Channel 1 stuff, all that stuff. I had never even heard of this, but it feels like it's in our wheelhouse. I'm surprised that this never came up. I think, again, though, this is the problem with the cutting the cord thing. Like, we used to see stuff by happenstance because it was on, right? Like, Gorda, we've talked about how we both watched Red Dwarf, right? Because it was on Tuesday nights. It's very hard to go find a show like that if you're not looking for it. You know what I mean? And now a show like this that a bunch of people I think would find very funny is probably very hard to find because if you're not looking for it, where is it, right?
No, I imagine it's probably on BritBox if you subscribe to that.
I keep wanting to pull the trigger because
too.
My sister once a day sends me a meme that is a mashup of The Simpsons and either Are You Being Served or Keeping Up Appearances, and I'm like, I just need to get BritBox.
I can't do it. It was so hard for me to finally get Paramount Plus, and I really wanted that. So I can't spend on another streaming service.
I'm sure everybody can relate. We're listening to. We're at a point right now where it's like, I pay so much money for streaming services and Sling that it's more expensive than cable was, and I don't know what to do anymore.
I was trying to see where this was available, and the only thing that like pulled up when I did a Google was, it's available on like Amazon Video in the UK. So I used my handy dandy VPN and I switched over to the UK and I checked, but it still made you buy the episode. So I was like, wait, that's not what I thought. I thought I got to watch the season if I just did that.
I thought it used to be on Hulu, but I might be wrong. It was on one of them.
I feel like it was streaming somewhere, yeah. I will say, though, now the funniest and like the smartest thing ever is, I don't know if you guys have noticed this lately, but you go looking for something you really want to watch and it's like available on Amazon and you're like, awesome, I pay for Prime, and it's like on Freevee. You're going to get 40 fucking commercials. And you're like, God fucking damn it. So the past year, we just talked about it. I've been obsessed with rewatching Miami Vice. And I stopped for the summer because in our room at night, we have to have the air conditioner on in the summer, right? It's so loud. And you can't watch a show like that with so much music and atmosphere.
You mean the modern remake version, though, right?
I mean, that movie is good. It's still Michael Mann, but I mean the original show. So I just hadn't watched it in like 3 months. I was like, I'm getting back into Miami Vice. I was so excited because now it's air conditioner out season. And then it was like last episode of season 3, season 4 started. And I had a legitimate moment where I was like, when I was watching this, did I think I would finish this? And I was drunk and I bought this 4th season ahead of time. Because if so, Joe, that was some great drunk foresight. And then it was just like, nope, now it is Freevee or whatever. There was like a 14-minute commercial, and I immediately hit pause, and I spent $20 and bought the season. I fucking will not fucking support you, Freevee.
Think of all the Frank Thomas commercials you're gonna miss.
Oh, God. I mean, to be fair, if they just only did Frank Thomas, I would be fine.
Do you think Frank Thomas would ever come on our show?
Nope. So,
no, I think he would, because I think Frank Thomas would do anything for a paycheck. I think it's just about what amount of money. I think he'll call us all little boy.
Can we afford Frank Thomas? No.
I don't know what Nugenics is paying, but I'm assuming for $1,000 we could get Frank Thomas.
Nope, still don't think so. Regardless, I want to go over a couple numbers as far as the ratings go. We've already talked about the validity of Rotten Tomatoes, but for now, we're going to still look at them. Rotten Tomatoes gives us a 95% with a 91% audience score. IMDb scores this one at an 8.3 out of 10. So, pretty well-received show across the people and the critics.
I mean, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, no shock after watching. I mean, we'll deep dive it as we get into it, but I can see why, especially on a critic level, I can see why it's liked.
Yeah.
And I want to plug our socials at S1E1pod.com. That's where you can go to find all our links to where you can listen to us, where to follow us on social media. Instagram, X, formerly Twitter, S1E1pod. Hit us up there, talk to us. We like to know what kind of shows you want us to cover. Just tell us how you found us in general. It's always nice getting to meet you guys. So hit us up on those. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys have any other tidbits about this show, but you know, we got a lot.
One
to
thing
cover.
I'd like to say though to any of our UK fan base listening right now, you guys have been great recommending shows to us that are UK shows that maybe just aren't played here. Like we mentioned earlier, right? There were some shows that played here a lot as kids, and we know them, right? But I think there's a lot of interesting things like this that we don't know about. If you think there's other stuff like this that is interesting, like let us know, because just a lot of it isn't shown over here, and I would love to know more about it. We can cover more of it.
Yeah, slide into those DMs.
Yeah, we're big fans of your TV, so.
We've gotten some good suggestions, and you know, to be completely honest and forthcoming with you guys, we do okay numbers in the UK, so thank you to those of you who listen out there. But yeah, to get into the episode itself, kind of opens up and we just see these establishing shots of this house. It's like an old abandoned looking house. You see room by room, nothing kind of anywhere. And eventually we get into like the bedroom, and we see this old woman. Her name's Heather Button, and she's laying in bed, and you can tell she's kind of on her last moments in life. And standing all around the bed, you see all what we come to find out are ghosts, and they're all kind of various time periods, and they're all watching over her as she's, you know, about to pass on. Like, oh, this poor thing, and this and that. And it kind of turns into this bet of whether or not she's going to be joining them. And then as she's finally passing on, you kind of see her spirit raise up, and then she just goes, nope, and then it just kind of bursts off into the heavens and decides to not stay part of the ghost tribe that's over in this house.
I don't know if it's because it's a British sitcom or not, but my notes for the first part, like I'm just writing it as I'm watching it. I'm like, intro, fog-swept British mansion. I was like, that's the most amazing prose I've ever written in notes for a fucking sitcom ever. Like a fog-swept British mansion. It's like, Jesus Christ.
One thing that like killed me is, in describing this first scene, obviously it doesn't sound like there's a lot of comedy there. There's a point where like one of the ghosts is like this headless guy. He must have been decapitated, so it's kind of the bit where you see the body holding the head. We've seen this on other shows and cartoons before.
Yeah.
He's the first one to say something like humorous to kind of cut the tension, but I could not make out what he said, so I couldn't write down the quote, and it killed me.
Oh, I thought he said lift me up. Lift me up so I can see.
Yeah, he's constantly talking to his body. And also, like, I had to look ahead because they don't explain it here, but they do explain the reasons for everybody, or how everybody died, and it is pretty funny.
A lot of it's touched on.
How long did it take you guys to notice the Boy Scout guy, the Boy Scout guy's arrow in his neck?
I thought it was a pencil at first.
I was far into the episode before I even noticed it.
I was about like 15 minutes in.
Literally, my fourth line goes, Boy Scout has a pencil in his neck, and then there's an arrow up that says arrow, because 2 minutes later I was like, oh, remember to call it an arrow, you figured it out. Because like there's no arrow tip to it.
He couldn't have been a Boy Scout, though.
I think he was more of like a troop leader.
A man scout?
Yeah, he's probably a scout leader.
No, not a man scout. Usually Boy Scouts have an adult who like guides them along.
Yeah.
It's not a bunch of children running free, and it's not a, oh, we need a man scout to accompany us. It's like just a troop leader.
Well, you guys love independent wrestling. There is Man Scout Jake Manning.
Yeah, that's probably what that is.
Yeah,
Thanks.
neither do I.
Yeah, that's definitely it.
He's an indie wrestler who's an adult man who's a Boy Scout. That's either way. But I will say,
is he the guy in the rails that fights the tent?
Yes.
Okay, I've seen him. He sucks.
So you know who I'm talking about.
Comedy wrestling sucks.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm not a huge comedy wrestling guy either, but I'm just saying that fits to what we're saying. But I will say, I think one of the greatest things you figure out right away before everybody talks is like there are ghosts here, and you realize that they're from all eras. And I think that is such a great conceit to a show, because you've got people who were stuck in a time they lived in, dealing with the time they're in now.
I can't think of anything like that distinct where there's almost one person representing all different eras through time like that. So I did think that was a unique take on this.
There's even like a caveman who's been like dead so long that he's actually intelligent now. Like he wins in chess later and stuff.
He's had time to learn. Yeah, he's just being amongst the rest of them.
I mean, not to jump ahead, there's a whole part of this episode that's about plague zombies, basically, who just are really good at furnace repair because they've been living in a basement for so long. Like, that shit is so fucking wildly funny. It's insane.
We also kind of find out in this moment that they're all sort of, I mean, kind of related in a way, right? Like, they all live there.
Yeah, they're all family.
They're all like tenants of this mansion at one point or another. So for the most part,
they're not all family. Some are family.
I thought that they were all from the same tree, though. That
No,
they all inherited it.
No, the only one related directly to the
Fanny,
old lady
for
that
sure,
died
right?
is the because she the one who says like that's the last button, and she's the one that got pushed out the window. And
But they all lived
okay.
there at one point in time. So maybe the Button house didn't last forever, but I mean, they all lived there at one point or another.
No, because so Pat, the Boy Scout guy, he was killed on the grounds because the grounds were hosting like a
Oh.
Boy Scout event. So it's
Okay.
not all family.
Oh.
It's people who could have been in the vicinity. I don't know what the politician, who by far is my favorite character of
Yes.
this whole show, I don't know. His whole thing was he died during a sex scandal. That's why he's pantsless, which I think is so funny.
it's so
But
good.
I don't know why he was on that property.
We tried to do the not to jump ahead stuff too much, but you kind of just did it with the Scout guy. The thing with him, that Julian's like the politician dude. The early plans, did you see this? Like early plans where he
No.
was going to be like, there were talks of having him dress more BDSM. And like the thought is, I guess, like he died like during like an autoerotic asphyxiation situation. I guess he's made to, I forget the guy's name. I didn't write it down. I meant to. But
David
he's-
Carradine?
No, but he is being somewhat based on a specific politician.
Okay. He's an MP. He's like a Tory who was like in a sex scandal, right? It's a very British sort of thing, but I will say it's like I mean, how many politicians in America have we had? Like, there's an obvious relation to that, right? Like, politicians are like,
It's not an American exclusive.
yeah, it's like, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like, that character is like so universal that I think that works really well for anybody watching this show.
He also looked like, oh crap, from like It's a Mighty Wind and like all those Christopher Guest movies. The hey, what happened guy.
Oh my God, R.I.P. And he
Yes.
just passed away last year, and it broke my heart.
Fred
How
Willard?
what happened?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
He looks just like him, right?
Fred Willard.
Yes.
Maybe it's him because he's a real ghost now.
Yeah, Fred Willard is a ghost now. Although to be fair, Fred Willard does show up on the last season. He's Phil's dad in Modern Family, and he looks
Yes.
so old. It, like,
He
broke
he
my
dies
heart.
on Modern Family. It's one of
Yeah,
the
he dies
saddest
in Modern Family.
fucking
It's
episodes.
very hard. It was that was a tough day for me watching that episode.
You know what's funny? Actually, the actor who plays Julian, Simon Farnaby. If you look at like his picture on like IMDb, he has like very curly hair there. So
Yeah, like he's like a big mop of curly hair.
he looks so different just because his hair is different. It's insane.
Do you think it's weird to like? So everybody has a costume on, basically, right? Like, you always think like it must be hard to spend your whole day dressed as like a scout leader in like little shorts, but that dude literally just has to wear like a long button-up shirt, sock garters, and his underwear all day long. That's so fucking. That's gotta suck. I mean, like, I'm sure he puts pants on, but like, I always love the stories of actors who were like, and then I like went into town to get a coffee, and I didn't realize that I still had the like swastika tattoo on my neck because I'm playing like a bad guy in a movie and nobody would talk to me at the coffee shop. Like, you can't even go with like, I guess you wear track pants or something.
I mean, he's got it better than the headless guy. Imagine you have to carry your head around all day.
Latte! Latte!
After this woman passes on, there's kind of that moment where all the ghosts kind of shuffle out of the room, and they do question who's going to be living here next, what's going to happen to this house. And you have that one guy, Thomas, who's like, her life was like a play, and he's like going on this like almost this like long poem, and like everyone's just flooding out of the room. No one's listening to him at all. And when he turns around and sees no one's there, it's kind of the end of that scene. And we get the cut to this married couple, and that's Allison and Michael, and they're modern day living people. And you see them searching for a home together.
A flat.
A flat.
Flat.
So they're looking at this place, and it's not the nicest. And they basically they're kind of talking shit about the place as they're looking at it, which is fair. But the realtor's like right behind them, and when you get like that pan to reveal that, he's like, "Oh no, don't worry about it. Like I wouldn't move here either."
I think everybody's been there, right? Like, we've all been
Yeah.
in like situations with a realtor where they're like, this apartment has great light. And you're like, no, it fucking doesn't. This is a nightmare.
Yeah, I do like how they looked out the window and they were like, "Oh, it's a fish and pizza place."
And they're like, well, we do like both of those things.
Yeah.
It's a Joe allergy hell. It's like, I can't even go in this place.
On a windy day, Joe just breaks out.
A wind.
This beautiful house right next to this,
hives. I just
next to
see
this
Joe
bakery.
sitting there.
I was gonna
Bread
say, like,
wafting.
that's what happens if I get too close to fish stuff. My whole hands and arms break out in hives. I don't have to eat it. I break out into hives, and then I have to take Benadryl, and then I'm all drowsy, and I can't do anything for the rest of the day. Because on Benadryl, you're basically a child.
Oh my god!
I
that
know
would be
it's
so
not funny, but in my head, it's like you're turning into a werewolf, and you're just like, like as the scales like shoot up your arms.
A werewolf who can't enjoy his life. Yeah, it's a great time.
A very sleepy werewolf on Benadryl.
Oh no, it's the fucking shellfish moon.
It's Joe the werefish. Blah, 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 blah. So anyways, while they're in this house, Allison gets a phone call, and she kind of heads off to take the call. And it's like the solicitor like telling her about this house, and she's like, oh, sorry, like we can't afford this, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, you don't understand. You inherited a house. And then you get that pan, it's like, woo, and then they go into the intro. So we find out that she's basically the heir to the Button house.
This is basically this. I kept adding on to this, but at this point I was like, oh, it's King Ralph. This is the plot of King Ralph. Which I feel like I've brought up a number of times on this podcast for some reason, which is like the least enjoyed John Goodman movie of all time. But to reiterate, King Ralph.
I like King Ralph.
It's a great movie. But the premise is everybody of the royal family gets killed when they're taking a full family photograph because they get electrocuted. And they're like, well, we have to find the nearest person to the throne. And it cuts to John Goodman, who's a Las Vegas like lounge singer. And he becomes the king. And that's basically the premise of this show.
Well, she becomes a lady.
She
She's a lady.
does.
Lady Gaga.
Get it for Gaga.
We get the intro to the show, and it's kind of like you see these kind of, it's the house in dollhouse form, and you kind of just get these like flashes where all these ghosts kind of appear and disappear, all the ghosts from this house, the actual characters. It's brief, but I think effective, not much to it, but I think visually it looked really nice.
Yeah, good supernatural music, too.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
spooky. Is diorama the right word here? Is that a diorama?
I would think so.
I think we'd call it a diorama.
No, because this is like a full, like, dollhouse. It's not really a diorama. It would have to be like a half, right?
But you don't know because there's no fourth wall.
Yeah, I thought the diorama you had to like look.
Then what are they
in.
going to break? Ah!
Oh. Speaking of which, they break the fourth wall on Mr. Iglesias constantly as they go on. Including Oscar from The Office going, I'm finally free of the office. And then turning to the camera and being like, like, all right, everybody, let's cool it down. No more drinking.
Do you feel like if you were to watch this intro isolated from the show itself, you would not know that there's any like air of comedy to it, though?
No, it's
No.
played very serious.
A lot of supernatural, even funny shows tend to do that.
I think it's just the genre, really.
It's a lot of British comedies where they take serious situations and they play them, funny situations, but play them straight. That's just the way it is.
It's dry, right? And like that's the greatest thing about British humor is there's always an element of just being very dry. And I think that, you know, having such an absurd show, I mean, like there are so many absurd jokes in the next scene even. Like you can track the next funny joke. You know right away what's going to happen.
Is that when they're talking to the guy and they're finding out the details about getting this house?
Yeah, like I feel like you can tell all of that. And the scene where they're driving to the house, like I feel like you can see it ahead of time if you know the premise, but the idea of like, but we're trying to be serious about it is very funny.
Yeah, so after the intro is, like I said, they're sitting there and they're learning the details about them inheriting this house. We kind of see the family tree situation that leads her to being the heir to this mansion. And she's like way off in the distance, but there's just like nobody left alive. So by default, she's getting this house.
Her great step aunt, and he's like,
Yeah.
no, that's not a thing.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, that's not a thing, but
It's not a thing.
but she's trying to make sense of it. And, you know, and we find out that, you know, Lady Heather had no other relatives. And that's when we kind of get that thing too about like, oh, so like, am I a lady like Lady Gaga? And I figured, Joe, did this bother you? This typically would bother you.
I was bringing up, this did not bother me.
Oh, interesting.
She's like
Why?
a mega pop star. It's like almost like Michael
Okay.
Jackson levels. I find that acceptable.
She's so big and omnipresent that I was just like, that's fine. Like, I'm not mad about this. There are other things I think too that they like I think they reference Kim Wilde later, and that made me feel like okay, because I'm like, okay, like they're keeping it insular a little bit. They're not going outside of. So I thought the Lady Gaga thing, like, look, I know who that is. That doesn't isolate me. You know what I mean? Like, I know who that girl is. lady, woman. I don't say girl. It sounds like I'm being a weirdo about it, but like I know who that woman is. I like know what some of her songs sound like. I know what movies she's in. She's so big that like that's fine.
What about when Mike eats some of the potpourri?
The crunch noise they makes that scene so
what
funny
kind of
to me.
potpourri
like,
was he eating that's that crunchy, by the way? Isn't it just dry flowers and stuff usually?
No, it's always hard.
Oh, I've never ate any potpourri, so I don't know.
Growing up, I don't know what happened to it when my grandmother passed away last year, but growing up, I always remember at my grandparents' house, my grandmother had a pine cone Christmas tree. Okay. And I was, as a kid, I like marveled at it. It was amazing. It was crazy looking, right? As a kid, you're like, what the fuck is this Christmas tree? I remember always like grabbing the pine cones, being like, these are so hard, like whatever. Like, how did they make this into a tree? Because like you don't know what you're talking about when you're like 6 or whatever. And I always used to think about like, you ever tried bite a pine cone? Like Underdog, like it's a gold coin. That's what this scene reminds me of. Like,
why would you bite a pine cone?
Yeah,
you didn't bite random stuff as a kid. I always bit stuff.
No,
not that. I'll tell a quick story about something that I bit at my grandparents' house. So during Christmas time, my nana would decorate the whole house, but the kitchen had all these different like decorative, like stringed candies, which was like real popular. The string hard candies, the fake ones, was like a big Christmas decoration. And she had all these like fake foods that she would like keep in the glass hutches and stuff.
Free pizza.
She had these like it looked like Hostess cupcakes, but they were like soap. And I didn't know that. So I'm like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years old, and I just see these cupcakes, and I'm alone in there, and I'm just being a sneaky sack of shit. And I'm like, I'm going to take a bite of this cupcake, and there you go. I just, ate some soap. Yeah.
But why did you finish the cupcake, Jay?
Why?
You eat 3 of them.
Well, at that point, I thought maybe the first bite was just weird. Sometimes the first bite, it's like, it's just awkward. You're not acclimated to the taste yet.
I mean, those cupcakes are delicious. The top is often waxy, to be fair.
Jay's just farting bubbles the rest of the day.
Yes, that's exactly.
Did you eat that? No.
Pop.
Another thing that I thought was funny in this scene too is when she asks how old she was when she passed, and it was like, oh, she was 99. She goes, oh, so close. Like
that made me laugh too, especially because this is what a week past when Bob Barker passed away at 99. And everyone was like, he was so close to 100 without going over. Come on.
Well, Betty White too. I bought the People magazine that's like Betty White turns 100. I was like, this is so weird and ironic. It's like I need to own this.
Her last words were like, fuck. Like so fucking close.
I was like, it's like, it was so, imagine being in the position of the magazine and like, it's out, it's ready, it's hitting stores, and then she dies like days before her birthday, but the magazine's already out, and like what do you do? It's just so
what do you do?
odd.
Honestly, you hoard a bunch of them to save later because that's going to become like a weird thing, right? Like imagine if you had a bunch of newspapers from 9/11, like, and it was like, beautiful morning in New York today. You're like, these are like now like a weird thing people are going to pay money for.
I bought 2 magazines. I'll be honest, I bought 2.
See, exactly. I will say this though, like, look, I don't know. I try not to think about mortality. This is an interesting conversation, right? Because it's a show about ghosts. I do my absolute best to push out all the fear of dying in my life every single day so that I can, make it through this hellscape we call a life. At 99, I don't know how you go through every day. I feel like, when you're a kid and you play The Ground is Lava, I feel like when you're 99, you play The World is Lava. Like, you're like, I have to piss. Okay, this is take 24 minutes to like not slip on this, to grab onto this. Like, it must be your whole day is consumed with trying to not die by accident.
Nah, life's great. You can say whatever you want and you can poop yourself and not get in trouble.
Yeah, I kind of don't want any of that.
Ferg's just waiting to have that eternal rash. He can't wait.
Yeah, this show shows that when you die, you are. I remember like hearing when we were kids, right? My mom especially was like, I read this book and it says when you die and you go to heaven, everybody's 30. And I was like, okay, like I don't, like the.
Can
book
I
of
be
the week
23?
I was gonna say, I don't know if 30 was.
I don't like 30.
30's not my ideal. I mean, maybe it was 27. But I don't think it was 27. But like, I think 30 was the actual year, right? So like, but then weird to me too. It's like, hey, I'm 30. I'm gonna go hang out with my parents who are also 30. Well, that's fucking weird, right? Like that becomes like a weird thing. But in this show, it's like you die when you die, and you are the way you died, which is a very interesting thing, right? So like, yeah, you don't want to be like Elvis is not a good death.
That's
right?
like Beetlejuice.
That's probably why the 99-year-old woman decided to not stick around the house. She's probably like, fuck this. I don't want to be eternally 99 years old. I'm out of here.
I mean, they don't explain it enough as to why some people stick around and some don't, which is part of the intrigue of this episode specifically.
It seems like it's a decision when you first die or something like that. Like, she's like, nope, it looks up.
Yeah, but imagine you die, and then these people are all like, hey, and you're like, what the fuck are you? We're spirits. Boom, boom, see you later. Like, what would compel you to be like, yo, let me hang with you? Unless they were like, hey, we got beer.
Drink anything, I mean, like, if it's meatloaf, what's a good meatloaf? I'm there. I think, though, that the whole thing, and, like, correct me if I'm wrong, again, we were all raised in the church for the most part, and I don't remember any of that shit because I hate it all, but I think the whole thing is you go to purgatory if you either, like, killed yourself or...
Oh, you go to
like,
hell if you killed
No,
yourself.
you go to hell.
That's considered murder, which is...
See, again, I'm bad at this, I don't know, but to be a ghost, though, is, like, you have unfinished business in this realm, is usually what
Correct.
they say, right? Okay, So
yeah, to my understanding, though, and I don't know a lot about the situation. I'm not a big follower of a lot of this, but I think regardless of whether or not you're going upstairs or downstairs, I think the ghost thing is more like the unfinished business regardless. It's not like they have unfinished business to, like, earn their heaven entry. It's more just because there's good and bad ghosts, right? So
if that's the case, though, if you've got unfinished business and you don't want to finish it because you'll go to hell and you don't have sex with a big horny bird, you will stay on this plane being a bad ghost forever, right? Like, you don't want to finish that business.
Yeah, I mean, that's true.
Yeah, so anyways, to get back into the episode itself, as they're talking in this room, it's kind of the guy who's sorting out the affairs and talking to them is pretty much suggesting that they kind of just sell the house back to whoever, and then it'll be taken care of from there.
But it could take a few years. It's not going to be an easy sell.
But they're like, well, what if we just take care of it ourselves and we fix it up and we turn it into a hotel? And he's kind of advising them not to, but can't tell them not to. It's their house, so, what are you going to do? Because she's looking at pictures and she's realizing how big this place is. So she's just...
It's a mansion. It's like it's a hotel-sized building. It's a huge manor.
And then from there we get back to, like, the house itself and all the ghosts are in there. And they're all kind of, like, just hanging out, right? We have, like, the one girl who's, like, teaching everyone how to make wicker baskets. And then, like, the two that are playing chess, the caveman being one of them you mentioned earlier. What did he say? He said, like, Duka Duka at some point. I don't know what that means.
He knows enough. It's funny because, like, his character has learned enough of, like, English and modern language through living with these people.
He's, like,
for
1
all
foot
this
in,
time.
yeah.
But he's also, like, a little passed out. I also love, too, that when she's talking about the basket, because you don't know that it's a basket weaving situation at first. And then she's like, you make it 6 potatoes high, which I think is my new measuring for anything now.
You know what I thought was funny? When the Scoutmaster is, like, announcing tomorrow's activities, and it's, like, food club, and it's like, oh, Kitty's going to tell everyone about the first time she had an egg. She goes, I actually didn't like it. She's like, oh, don't spoil it.
It's such a good part.
So we're going to wait all day to hear this story about how she had the egg.
They have made such an interesting life for themselves where they have, like, such a funny regiment of, like, their life, like, long, not life, but, like, their eternally long friends. And every day is a new day, and they try to keep it interesting.
And I think they understand that with eternity, you kind of have to spread these stories out, right?
Yeah.
You can't tackle too much at once. So the one thing, going back to, I mentioned the one ghost who was decapitated, who's carrying his head around and stuff. His head's on the floor a lot. I'm sorry for trying to make logic of something so crazy, but he seems to have no control of his body. And that, like, typically when these things are portrayed, usually the body kind of works with the head being, like, in charge of the situation. And, like, this body's just kind of going rogue at all times. And I don't know. It was just every time I looked at it, I'm like, why can't you control your own body?
Well, picture it this way. Say you removed your head and it was over there. For some reason, your body is you still have full control of your body.
Right.
You're not seeing stuff from your body. So you're trying to control a blind body you're not seeing it from your normal perspective.
I'm just going by how I'm used to seeing it portrayed in other media when I see, like, it's not like I said, not the first time they've done this on a show, so.
My whole thing, why wouldn't you, as a body, just pick your head up and put it on your neck and just, like, constantly be holding, like, one hand?
Who wants to stand like that all day?
Yeah, your hands are
he's
yours.
Your arms
dead.
will get tired, yeah.
You
Dead.
should Krang it. I don't know why Krang comes up on this podcast so often.
When has Krang came up on this podcast, Joe?
It has a number of times. We've mentioned Krang like 4 times. Ferg, back me up. We've talked about crying before, like recently.
Ferg.
We talked about a lot of turtle stuff. So.
Yeah, a lot of
we've never
turtle stuff
talked about
comes up.
crying.
But I would Krang myself at that point, put the head in the middle and just walk around. Or maybe the chest.
Yeah, I mean, you could. But if he can't touch anything because he doesn't have because clearly they don't have the ability to like touch objects in the mortal world.
But they can touch
except for the
themselves.
politician.
I think if they could change themselves, he would have pulled the arrow out of his neck and stuff like that.
That's true.
So I think they're just trapped the way they are.
So I think that there is no ghost string that you could, or ghost ace bandage that you could bandage up your head to be like Krang.
Just stick it in your shirt and then unbutton the middle.
Yeah.
It'd be resourceful, Gordo. Come on.
Gordo,
Okay.
think more like Krang. You're not Kranging enough right now.
I gotta make sure when I die with a hoodie on. So if my head comes off, I can put on the hoodie and just go like
It's
that.
sort of close at least, yeah.
In Ferg's final breath, as everyone's
my
standing on the
hoodie.
bed, hand me some duct tape. I need to die holding this duct tape.
Well, wait a minute. They have a Boy Scout.
It doesn't matter, though. You can't use
You
random
can't.
objects. We just talked about that.
You would think that he would have some kind of ghostly supernatural resourcefulness, though.
Everybody has it gets established later though. Everybody has different supernatural abilities.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
they need
okay.
to maybe like if one of those new people died, they'd have the ability to like make that easier for them, but so far we know those people don't.
They also don't seem like the smartest group of ghosts.
And that's why it's
True.
funny. Yuck, 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 yuck.
Yeah, waka waka. But also like you've got people from cavemen all the way to people who died in the 90s as this group, so like it's a varied group of different times and different knowledges, right? And like we see the thing with the basket weaving, right? Like they try to teach each other stuff, but nobody seems that interested in the stuff they're trying to teach either. It's just a time waster, so
I thought that this was a good scene as far as being able to give us a glimpse of who everybody is a little bit. You get kind of, just by seeing them interact, we don't need everyone's full backstories. You're just kind of seeing their personalities and how they are with one another. I thought it was just a good scene to kind of get a vibe for who's on this show.
I agree with that.
I mean, this is tough, right? Because like we watch a lot of ensemble comedies, right? But this is a big cast
Yes.
to give you in the first episode and try to give you enough knowledge, right? Like you've got the two main people, you've got a realtor, you've got a I guess you'd call him a lawyer, I guess, who gives them this, and then you have all the ghosts, and then you have more people just keep coming, and you know a lot of them are going to come back and be in it. Like I think they did a good job of giving you enough character work for everybody that you sort of get it.
Did we mention the length of this episode, though?
Yeah,
I mean,
29
it is-
minutes without commercials.
Yeah, it's 29 minutes, which is very long for a sitcom.
Yeah, so I think that they have a little bit more leeway to
Yeah, big time.
Flesh
That is
out
true.
that
There's
stuff a
a
little
lot
bit.
of bonus time to kind of get into it. Yeah.
I would be intrigued to see how the US version of it handles this, because that I'm assuming it's like a CBS or ABC show. That must be 22 minutes.
And I think you got to remember too, like not everyone is a main character. So not everyone needs like a full description, full background. Like we said, a lot of these, it's implied what happened to them, but we don't need full origin stories for every single person we see.
Correct. We just need enough origin, like, not to tip my hand, but what we got in this episode, I think is about as good as you can get with a cast this big.
I agree.
Yeah, I think you just want to get a vibe for personalities. There's plenty of time in future episodes to give the full details. You just kind of want to know who people are, generally speaking, and then how they are with one another. And that's enough to just invite you into the world.
And I think you
Exactly.
get enough too. Like, is Mary the one who was clearly burnt at the stake? If
Yes.
people are just like, I smell toast, right? Like you
Yeah.
understand that without hearing anything else. You know what I mean? Like there are enough
Yeah.
characters where you're like, I kind of get this. I don't need you to like lead this horse to water so hard. You know, you understand that these characters are sort of.
Look at it, even with the Scoutmaster, like there's an arrow through his neck. Do you need to know any more? Like, you know what happened.
Like you saw that and you created the full story in your head of his
Right.
his death and stuff.
Like some shithead kid who didn't know how to shoot an arrow killed this guy on this property. Like that's all you know right away.
The other thing that happens in the scene, and we'll get into it later when it's kind of more fleshed out, was this argument between the captain and Franny, because Franny has this thing where she keeps floating to the window and falling out of it and screaming in the middle of the night.
The scream
And,
gets me.
Every
Yeah,
time.
Scream is
and
great.
The captain takes issue with it because that's right where his room is, and it keeps him up at night. This gets addressed later, so I don't want to get too into it, but it is first brought up at this point in time.
I will say, as somebody, I watch a ton of World War II movies. It's like one of my favorite things to watch in bed at night. Is like, and every World War II movie usually has like the stern English officer, and they do this character so well. Like, this is basically half the prison camp of like The Great Escape, right? Where like there's a scene where he goes to bed and he does like 7 movements to get into bed that are like robot rigid. He still does the like uniformed way of doing it. I think that stuff is so fun. Like, they pick so many funny different types of people that are also played out in popular culture so well that you get them right away.
Yeah. And I like this part too because it also, I mentioned it earlier, it shows that the caveman is intelligent because he's the one who comes up with the idea for them because he wants that room because he wants the view. He comes up with the plan for them to switch rooms because she's not originally going into his room and waking him up. He's just hearing the scream as she falls by his window.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, the joke of the scream and the
plop
took 100 years of reasoning to figure it out thing is so funny in this episode, but it's perfect.
So now we cut to like the next day, and you see the couple driving to the mansion for the first time, listening to Sexy Back by Justin Timberlake. And
great song.
Does she sort of look like an English Rashida Jones to anybody else? That's what I kept thinking watching this.
No.
kind of. I don't. No, she
think
looks like
so.
a Zoe Deschanel. Almost.
Again, no.
She reminded me of an English proxy for Rashida Jones, personally.
I just want to point out, you're still saying her name wrong, Gordo. Deschanel.
Deschanel.
Nope.
No, not
So anyways, they're pulling up and you have her looking out the window, and like as they're getting closer, she's like, oh my God, like my heart. I feel like I know this place already. Like the track, every tree, it's, you know, it's like I've been here my whole life. Like it's home. And then they pull up and they're at the wrong house. It's like, oh, wrong one. And they just spin around again, which I thought was funny. It was a little projected, but
yeah,
I thought
it's
it was
tracked.
funny.
You can tell it's coming, but it doesn't make it any less funny.
And now we're back at the Button House, and the captain's confronting Fanny again for these nightly screaming things that are going on. And basically, it's like she's like cursed to reenact her own death every night.
That's a huge bummer if your death like sucked. You know what I mean? Like if your death
like
was
a
like
painful
I fell
death,
asleep
yeah.
I died in my sleep peacefully. You're like, yeah, reenact that every night, no big
Yeah, like
deal.
why
But
does only she have to deal with that and no one else
nobody
does?
else seems
Yeah.
to?
And she's trying to tell everyone the story of what happened to her, but like no one's interested. Like they've all been dead together for like a century, and like she still hasn't gotten the story out.
I love though too that some of them haven't, right? Like the Tory MP guy, Julian, he's only been dead since 1993, right? So he's been there for like 20 years or whatever. And you can tell that the Scoutmaster guy was killed in the 80s, which I thought was a fun, like, this is one of my favorite things. He was like, oh, that's Kim Wilde. Like, when the song Kids in America is playing, he's so excited because it's music from his time, and he must not have heard that since then. Because
I
it's
didn't
a house
get
full
that.
of old people. Yeah, so I like that because it shows when he died without saying explicitly, right? Like, he's tracking
interesting.
something from his time, because that would have been, like, what, 81, I think the song came out in?
And
Oh,
that's
smart.
that's the song that's playing as they're pulling up during this conversation. So the car gets there. The guy Thomas, the one who's a little bit more poetic, when he sees Allison for the first time, it's like love at first sight, which is sentiments that are kind of also replicated when the captain sees Mike for the first time.
Oh, yes, he's a great soldier.
He'll make a fine soldier.
Yeah, I love that they both give you that the captain is clearly closeted and that the Shakespeare guy is also a little not right because he's related into that family. So he's got like it's like 75 generations aside, but like that's still being super into like a relative of yours who's also alive and married, which is weird.
She's like a step niece.
I think the tree catches somewhere. I don't know.
I think if it's a thing that you have to justify, that it's
It's
just
a
too
problem.
close.
Yeah, I guess if
it's
you have to
already a
justify,
problem.
yeah.
No, it's totally okay. Like, no, it's
Our
Once you
kids
hit that
won't have
point, it's
flippers.
fine.
We'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know about that.
They will because they'll have ghost tails.
Do ghosts have tails?
Casper did.
Yeah, they have little
True.
ghost tails.
Yeah, like ghosts
Oh,
like that. They have a
ghost
little
flippers.
pointy part.
Okay.
Casper, I'm Michael Jackson. I'm basically just a little Casper. Come here, boys.
What's wrong with you?
Whatever that
Ghost of
was
Michael-
made me uncomfortable. Okay? I just want you to know that.
Then my job was completed. Come here, Tito.
So they're going through the house, and there's a point where they're excited. They're going through this house for the first time. They're seeing how big it is. They're very excited. They kind of think of all the prospects of what's going to be with this hotel. And the two stop and they have like a quick kiss in one of the big rooms. And as the camera spins around, you see all the ghosts are there. They can't see the ghosts, but they're standing all around them. And I did like the way that they do this, because whenever they're filming the ghosts and the people together, they're not doing that thing where the ghosts are like kind of opaque and they're like recording twice and things like that. Like they're clearly all in a room together to the point
Every
where
actor is in the scene
they're
together.
always together. Yeah. And I think that it's a different look to do it that way. And I really enjoyed that. They don't make the ghosts look like ghosts, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think to that point that the way that this was shot was so refreshing in a way, because like you said, they pan on one side of like the couple and you see all the ghosts as if they're real people, and then they'll pan to like the ghost perspective, or then they'll pan back and then they're not there, like when they're meant to see it from the couple's perspective.
Yeah, you kind of see what's really going on when the ghosts are around, and then you see what they see through their eyes, not like through like it's not like a first person thing, but in their worlds basically where they can't see ghosts. You just kind of flicker back and forth a lot, where you see the scene act at one point where they're all there, and then a quick cutaway, and then they're all missing again, and then like it does weave back and forth in a way that makes sense.
I like that they're always in a semicircle too. I like that it's not like a straight line.
Yeah.
They're always like half surrounding whatever scenario they're in.
I think it's done best like a little later when we'll get into it, but when they're doing the haunting scene and they're showing everything. That's like my legit favorite part of the episode. I was dying laughing.
We did a show last year for Halloween. Was it Ghosted? Where they were helping the ghosts
2 years ago?
2 years ago? There's a show we did for Halloween one of those years where it was like a guy helping ghosts. It was a comedy, but he helped ghosts get back to like out of ghost world into
brain something. Jay, it was your pick last year.
I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but I'll figure it out because we did cover it.
There's no show called
something.
Brain.
It's not Brain.
No, it's not Brain.
Either way, that show though, they always made the ghosts like ghosty, and I agree with you guys that I think it's better that they're just in the same world here, and you're smart enough as a viewer to know they're ghosts, and that's fine. You don't get like hit over the head with it.
They do the cinematography does such a great job at implying that without saying it, without, like you said, smacking that over your head that like these guys are ghosts and they're not here and they can't see them, but the ghosts can see them. Like it's just done in a very tasteful way. By the way, that show's Deadbeat that you're talking about.
Deadbeat. Yes.
I was so close with Brain something.
Nope.
How you missed it.
What was it called? Brain Babies. Yeah, so anyways, as they're walking by, there's that, I like the moment where, I think it was Fanny who said it, like, someone said to her, well, like, she's your relative. It's like, she's not my relative. Like, her knees are exposed and she has a tattoo.
Again, a great thing to be like, every generation is going to be a different, like, and the most modern dead person there died in 1993, which is 30 years ago, right? Like, the world is so changed since we were 8 years old.
It's funny too, like her knee's exposed in that she has like a rip in the knee of one jean, but like not even in an extreme way. She's wearing long pants.
Right, but and the Totori guy Julian would definitely have seen that. That was a thing in the 80s and 90s, you know?
But also, if they said she's your relative, that means the majority of them aren't related, only Fanny.
That's actually a good point. I didn't think about that in the moment. So now they're following them around the house. So the ghosts are following this couple around as they're touring the house. And they're looking at each room and kind of going over what things they want to do to change them. And they're talking about different themes because obviously they want to make it a hotel. And they're like, oh, there's going to be like a 50s room and this and that. And I kind of like the idea that like, I always see things like this online or represented on television, but I've never gone to a hotel that has like specific theme rooms like that. And I always thought that'd be a cool like place to go.
You can go to Adventure Suites by North Conway.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah,
There's a lot of them. There's one in Boston. There is one in Boston that is above. It's in Kenmore Square where the Fenway Park is, right? And it's above where like famous rock and roll punk rock club The Rat was, and they have a like rat room in Kenmore. Did I say Kendall?
The Commonwealth, I think.
The Commonwealth,
is what it's called.
But if you go into the rat room, it's just like rock and roll. And it's like Aerosmith posters. It's like you guys fucking swung and you guys fucking missed and not get this at all.
But that's because I feel like that's like a Marriott or something like that. That's like a big chain hotel that's this is what like we think hotel. Like a rock and roll room would look like, when it's just really like one of their standard rooms with like a different color scheme and like you said, like rock posters. You need like a real eccentric person to be like, I'm gonna make like a jungle room and put like a canopy bed that is surrounded by like a banana tree or something silly like that.
To that, I remember I may have talked about this before, but like before I moved, I was going to the gym a lot, and I was going to a Planet Fitness, and then one day they were like, you had an email that was like, Planet Fitness is no more. We are now Rock and Roll Gym. And I was like, I'm gonna fucking hate this. And I was like, let's see what Rock and Roll Gym is. And it literally was Planet Fitness. They changed nothing, but they like must have gone to like, I don't know, Spencer Gifts or something. And there was just a fuck ton of Beyonce and Britney Spears posters all over the wall. And I was laughing so fucking hard. It's like, isn't it rock and roll? It's like, I don't fucking think so, man. And that same guy who like will not put his dick away in the locker room is still here. So like, this is the same fucking gym.
I was thinking that it's going to be like, they're going to be playing Rat or something like that.
I was hoping. I was like, I won't wear my headphones. They're just going to play like VH1 Classic Metal Mania all day long.
Joe had his Striper t-shirt on. He was like ready to go.
I was like, to hell with the devil.
And then we flash back outside, and they're standing there kind of outside of the front of the house, and they're looking over things. And you have all those ghosts again with them kind of standing around them in a semicircle. And I said how I like, the not using effects, which I guess technically it's like, I like how it looks, but it's just more cost effective and a lot easier and cheaper to do it that way. But when they do the effect, there's the point where like she goes to like reach out and her hand goes like through the Scoutmaster's face, and it's like, that looked kind of shitty.
It like ripples and it's bad, yeah.
Maybe that's why they're not using effects, because they're not good at them or have the budget for them. So they're like, let's just try to just keep everyone in the room and not touch.
But I like that too, though, because it gives you a, like, do you want this, guys? Or do you, like, just get it, right? Like, I think in the first episode, the pilot especially, it's just like, you understand the rules, right? So we're not going to do this again.
I'll tell you, I got, like, a laugh out of this part 2 when they're outside. This is when they all kind of really catch on that this is, the plan is to convert this place to a hotel.
The jump cuts here are fucking great.
Because,
editing.
that's when the caveman's like, what is hotel? And then when the guy starts to explain it to him, it just cuts to later in the day, and it's, like, dark, and it just goes, kill them.
Yeah, that scene, there's a lot of genuine lulls in this episode. That was a real good one. I love too, though, that it's like, again, it's economic. It's like, they didn't have to explain it. They knew they could just jump cut to later that day, and you just move on. It's so well done.
And now they have to figure out a plan to get rid of them, right? So now it's like, what are we going to do? Are we going to scare them? Are we going to kill them? Like, all these things are being talked about. And they're kind of going over this idea of like, I guess we could just like haunt them, because they're like they're all ghosts, but they've never really been in the business of haunting, I guess. They've just kind of been just existing in this house with different heirs to the home.
That's funny. This is the exact plot of Beetlejuice.
That's true, actually. Yeah.
This turns into King Ralph meets Beetlejuice, like, and then it turns into something else we'll bring up later. Like, it's the best like amalgamation of all these things. But I think one of the best lines, like not funniest, but just like best to like keep the thing forward so you understand what's happening here, is in this scene. They're like, well, what if we killed them? And they're like, yeah, but then we could be stuck with them forever.
Yeah.
It like reiterates the stakes of this, where it's like, we don't want these people here. It's like, yeah, well, if we fucking kill them, they might be part of our crew all of a sudden.
Yeah, we want to scare them off.
We're not going anywhere. Yeah, like that's such a great, like it actually gives you stakes.
It's smart.
But they don't hate them. They just don't want them to turn into a hotel, which is going to bring a lot of people. I think it's weird that they wouldn't want them there if they killed them.
You know what's funny, as we think about it, you would almost think they'd want people in and out of that house more, right? Because like they've just kind of been like there forever, so like it would just keep things more energized to just
No. I'll tell you exactly why. That place gets turned into a hotel. Think about how many, people are going to be banging every night.
Did the rest of you guys know as soon as Gordo interjected, because he had a smirk on his face?
I knew it was going to be wrong. I didn't know what it was going to be, but I knew it would be wrong.
I knew exactly, like, I could have just like typed to talk if I had like a Gordo voice. I could have just had the same thing come out because I knew I saw it in his face. He had that little smile and he was all excited to say it. And I knew it was going to be something weird and perverted.
I thought he was going to go bathroom, honestly. It'd be like, the ghost has to go to the bathroom. Someone's in there. Like, that's what I thought he was going to go with.
No, ghosts, they clearly can't. But they're going to be trying to go to bed and someone's going to be laying pipe on it.
To be fair, though, you said they clearly can't go to the bathroom, but we see the captain clearly lays in a bed.
Well, maybe he hovers.
They sleep at night because she
they
keeps
sleep at night. They actually
interrupting
do
his sleep.
This is one of those things, too, where shows like this are not meant for shows like ours. You know what I mean?
No.
It's like
we overanalyze stuff so hard. It's not
wait a
what this
minute.
is
How
made
come
for.
the ghost could do this, but at this point and later in the episode, they were unable to do that? This doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, we're like the people that like get punched in the face at Comic-Con panels when we do these sort of episodes. You know what I mean?
How come you have to sleep?
Well, if you don't eat and you're not tired all the time, and you can be like all the time. Yeah, it's get out.
I noticed in season 3, episode 4, Fanny ate a muffin, and that's not even time appropriate. Muffins weren't created until 1987.
And did you know that muffins spelled backwards is sniff him? It's like, all right, everybody, time to leave.
You're the worst.
Joe hasn't been able to say that in months.
Like 100 episodes.
Yeah. Waiting for
Since
that
Wings,
callback.
maybe. Yeah.
You got the old super fans of ours who was like, he did the sniffing thing.
Yeah.
It's bad.
No, he hasn't done the sniffing bit since episode 32. We're just shitting all over our own fans at this point.
So they're kind of going over all these different things they can do to haunt them, and kind of like everyone has like kind of a power, right? So like the caveman Robin, like he can flicker lights, and you have like the girl. Is it Mary, the one who's like the witch trial girl? Was that her name?
Yeah, it's
I
Mary.
forget that one's name. But
The one who was
yeah,
burned at the
she's
stake is
burnt
Mary.
one.
Yeah, and it's just like,
Yeah.
you smell like burning. That's her.
Lemon toast. I love that so much.
And then like Julian, who's like the politician guy, like he has probably like the best one, right? He can actually move objects in our realm
with great effort.
But that's the thing that's
Yeah.
funny about it. Like he's moving, like, you know, they show him like
He
trying
makes
to
like
move
sex
like this cup and he's
noises
like,
when he does it.
There's also a little girl who apparently died of the plague that sings Ring Around the Rosie, and for some reason people can hear it.
How come? Is it just different out there? Instead of like ashes, ashes, it sounded like you sing like tissue, tissue.
I think it's just an English version of it. Yeah, we're used to like a more American.
Was it tissue she was saying? That's what I thought it was.
I thought
yeah,
it was
yeah.
too.
That was strange. I don't know.
Which ashes, ashes, we all fall down. I find is a much scarier line, or like at least more off-putting, especially in a show about ghosts.
So
Yeah.
all these ghosts have like their plan in play now, right? They're gonna try to lightly haunt these people. And we cut to a little bit later on, and Allison's in the shower, and you have Thomas, who's in love with her, peeping through the door. You see his whole body is through the door at this point, just watching her, which is incredibly creepy.
He's bent over at like a perfect 90-degree angle too.
Right.
Like I give this actor a lot of credit for being able to do that. Whereas like I would have lasted, I don't have the core strength to do that for more than like at least one take at the most.
She gets out of the shower and she walks out into like the hallway where they're all at. And like, you know, they're doing all the things they were rehearsing, right? Robin makes the lights flicker real quick. You know, and you get this thing where like they're kind of cutting, right? It's like the little camera tricks where they're all there and then they're not because we're changing perspectives, like reality versus her reality. And like none of these things are really working out. You have Julian trying to like push a vase, and like when they're showing like
It's so
the
extreme.
ghost perspective, and like he's screaming and there's all this
He's like
chaos going
sweating
on.
so
Yeah.
much.
And then
yeah.
and then they cut to like her reality, and like she's just walking by, and you just see the vase move like a quarter of an inch, like as she's already walked past it.
Yeah, like she gently nudged it by accident.
And I like the way that all looks when they're going back and forth like that.
Yeah, she walks through the dead girl, the fire girl, and she just smells like burnt toast.
And then the little girl, the plague girl that starts singing, and then the speakers upstairs start playing, so you can't even hear
Yeah,
her.
floods her out.
Yeah, when the dude's flashing the light, she just shuts the light off, turns the light
Yeah.
off until it stops.
And when she shuts the light off, it also electrocutes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the-
because
the
now he's like
caveman.
somehow connected to the energy, so like the flickering is like messing with his brain.
I didn't mean to go ahead, but when I looked up the characters, it tells you that apparently when he died on the property, he was struck by lightning while hiding under a tree from a bear. and that's why he has electrical powers, and that's why he's also able to be
okay.
electrocuted really easily.
Okay, that makes sense.
But I love the hat on a hat. It's like, he was killed. Oh, while hiding under a tree. Oh,
From
they got struck by lightning. Oh, because he was trying to get killed by a bear. Like, oh, geez, it's a lot. There's a whole lot to that story.
I find this scene like the funniest scene in the whole episode, just like the way it's shot and done, and I the way we're explaining it, it's definitely not doing it justice. So
It's really tough because there's so much going on. There's so many visual gags. There's so many camera tricks. This
is a very physical humor heavy show, and it's very hard to talk about that when you can't see it.
And we get to later on in the day, and the couple's heading down to the basement, and they're trying to fix the boiler. And this is when it's revealed that there's a whole bunch of other ghosts that live in the basement.
And they all died from the plague.
Yeah, it's like a bunch of plague victims. And Mike's like, oh, I can fix this. Like, I watched like YouTube videos. And we've talked about this in the past. And like the idea that, YouTube teaches us how to do everything now.
It really does. When he's like, or she's like, you can't learn everything from that. I was like, wrong. Goddamn wrong.
Yeah, wrong.
I've got pipes in this house that will tell you are wrong, madam.
I've even done the YouTubing, like, where's the blah, blah, blah on my car? So, like, I'm like,
oh, yeah. We had to do that for the emergency thing when we first got our car. It was like, we couldn't figure out, because usually it's like a thing you, like, switch. In our car, it's a button. So, like, we just never knew where to look. And then when someone's like, look at the button that has the emergency logo on it, and you were like, well, no one's going to look for a button. Come on.
It's like, you think, like, you spend all this time trying to create content. And, like, we have a YouTube, we mostly put, like, our episodes on and all these other platforms, and you hope they catch on and you get views. But really, like, if you just recorded a quick video, if you're like, where's the power button on my Toshiba television set, model blah, 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 like, it'll get thousands of views because it's, like, so practical and everybody needs that stuff.
The most annoying part about that is, too, where, like, I can think of one particularly where it was like, when you've got a stripped screw, and you're like, how do I get this stripped screw to catch or something? And you look up on YouTube, like, how do I get out a stripped screw? And you watch, it's like, in this 1 minute video, we're going to show you how to get rid of a stripped screw. And there's 4 ad breaks in the 1 minute video because it's been watched so many times, it's that monetized. You're like, I think I got it now. And it's like, fuck you. Fuck me. Yeah.
If it wasn't for YouTube, I would never know how to tie a tie.
Also true.
That's the one thing that I was taught once visually and then learned. And then I don't hate retail workers. I've worked in a million retail jobs in my life.
You've already established how you feel about retail.
No, he doesn't hate retail workers. It's just they're not normal people.
It's just not a real job. I've worked
a lot of retail jobs, and that's all I was saying is that, like, my brain can't do it anymore. But I remember in an Avril Lavigne-esque world and, like, a Sum 41-esque world when I worked at, like, the alternative clothing store in Harvard Square, girls would come in all the time and be like, I want to buy this tie. And they'd be like, okay, that's like $7. Everybody be like, can you tie it for me? And you'd have to, like, just tie a tie. And then, like, when you take a tie off, I mean, like, I do this all the time and I can tie a tie. You always take it off just enough that you can get it over your head.
So you never have to tie it again.
So you don't have to tie it again. So I'd have to do that for, like, girls all the time would come in, or, like, boys all the time would come in, like, high school kids who'd be like, I want to look like these people. And you'd be like, okay, like, don't untie it. Or, like, if you do and you come back, like, you have to buy me a coffee. I'm not doing this for you, like, every weekend. But now I know how to tie only one tie knot. I can only do one. I can do it perfect, but only one.
I can never get the length right when I'm doing the tie. It's the short end. It's
always
super
hard,
long.
Yeah.
I'm like,
super long on the bottom. I'm like, fuck.
Even when I adjust, I do it again. I go, how?
I'm
you
just short.
You do it the opposite way, where the front's really long and the back. Yeah.
I'm just short, so it just never looks good. You know what I mean? I have to really, like, make sure I have it right, but mine almost always come out even, and I gotta, like, tuck it in. And I know it's a physiological thing with me, not a...
Well, I'm the opposite. I have the neck of a rhino. So basically, like, when I tie a tie, I have to leave it so there's, like, just enough, like an inch. So I can tie the tie and have, like, enough for when I drop it down. Because one of the, I mean, especially for bigger guys, but, like, a visual that I can't not notice when people do it is when you go somewhere and everyone's in shirts and ties and someone's tie is way too high up. Like, if it's, like, above your
too
belly
short.
button, like, you look like a cartoon character. Like, it needs to, like, go just
it looks like the Undertaker's
over
tie in the early 90s. We're like, why does your tie only go to your breastbone?
It needs to dip, like,
the
right
Eddie
around
Valiant.
the belt line. Like, right around where the belt is. Like, not super low, but, like, just kind of hit that area.
Yeah, like, it should hit your belt buckle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Like, just
Or, like, right above it.
I did the go to just under my belly button.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, you see the people where it's like, did you look at yourself before you left?
Do you want to know a good trick? If you just see, for me, I just like plain skinny black ties. It's all I wear. You can get those a lot. I don't know if it's like around anymore, but you can get them around costume shops and stuff. But they make ties for like plays in movies that have a button. So the tie is never not tied. Well, you could untie it and fuck it up, but the tie is tied, and then right here, there's a button with a flap, so you can't tell it's buttoned. But that's what they use for like plays and stuff.
So it's like the evolution of a clip-on.
Basically, yeah. It's a real tie, but you can just unclip the whole tie. It's not like a fake tie. So I had a couple of those for a long time.
Oh, interesting.
The Boston Costume, does that sound right? That was in the theater district, I think was what it was called.
That does sound right.
Common District. Wasn't
Garment
it?
District?
Wasn't that the store?
No, I know what
I think they bought it. I think they merged.
I think they bought it. Yeah, you're right.
But in any event, to go back into this while he's trying to fix this boiler, what I do like is as he's like incorrectly doing things, all these ghosts all seem very proficient in fixing this boiler, and like everyone's
they're
like
amazing boiler repair people.
Yeah, like all of them, and they're all just talking about all the things he should be doing and stuff like that. And I don't know, it's weird. It's like it's humorous. They're not really telling jokes, but it's funny. They're really good at doing that in this show.
I feel so sorry for them when they shut the light off because they can't turn the light back on because they can't interact with the outside world.
Well, they choose to be down there though. They could go into the parts of the house.
Do we know that?
Do we know that yet though? I didn't.
They are
Why
very
would they
separated
stay
from
down
the
there?
rest.
I do know that, and again, it's not like reading ahead. It's just when you're doing research on the show, it's like the first episode features plague zombies, and the plague zombies live in the basement because they've been down there the whole time. They know how to fix everything, and even though they could, they don't go upstairs because the girl who sings "Ring Around the Rosie" is also a plague zombie.
Oh, okay. So they like invited
and
her
she
up
comes up, but the rest of them stay down there. I don't know why. I hope they explained it at some point, but I wish I didn't know that. But yeah, it makes more sense for your point. If you're like, they're stuck down there, you'd be like, oh, of course, because why wouldn't they leave? Because they're buried down there. They're in like a plague pit, and the house is built over it.
After they think they've repaired it, we have Allison back upstairs, and she's like testing the radiator in one of the rooms. And she hears a noise, so she like leans out the window, and she sees that there's like a pigeon. And she's like very far out, like further out than I think. And we've already established the pigeon's there, and you can't reach it. So I don't know why she's like to her thighs, basically out the window.
The pigeon is 20 feet to the right and a story above her. Like, there's no way
she's going to reach it. But as she's out the window, Julian passes by, and he sees her like that, and all these things are kind of going through his head. He's thinking about the hotel and all these different prospects and, everything they discussed earlier.
I also got like a sexual vibe out of this too.
I could see that. I think they started you thinking that way.
Yeah, because she's bent over and he's walking in like this, like,
I didn't get it that way. I can see how you did it. It's not how it hit me, but here's my thing. So what happens is Julian walks up and he gives her that little push to get her out the window, right? It took so much effort for him to move a cup. How is he able to just like no effort just contact her and push her like that?
I don't think she did. I think she turned around and we find out she's able to see the ghosts all of a sudden.
The accident. The accident is why she can see them.
It's from the accident because Julian pushes her out the window and then,
she sees the ghost, right?
And then we get to this cut.
I have an idea.
Okay.
If you get like touched on your butt or something when you're not expecting it,
no. Terrible
you get
idea.
like goosed. But
she
you
was
get goosed and scared a little bit, so it won't take a lot to just touch it for you to go up and jump, and then you fall when you're that far out the window.
I think there's something there, Gordo, that she got spooked by being touched. I think she was out so far that it took very little effort of him to try to push her. She felt something and jumped and fell out.
That's what I was saying.
I guess it's possible,
but I don't think it was I'm going to grab your butt, and she fell out.
I stand by my decision. And the porno I've created in my mind about this decision.
In any event,
ghost, what are you doing?
Yeah, she is stuck in the window.
She falls out of the window, and you get that scream to the point where all the other ghosts thought it was Fanny again because she's always falling out the window. And then they realize that she's in the room with them. So now we cut to outside, and she's laying on the grass, and she just fell out. What is it, like a second story? She wasn't like terribly high up, but a good drop nonetheless.
That's high enough to kill you.
High enough to kill you, right? Depending on how you land. So Mike, her husband, rushes outside. He's trying to help her. And you're getting from her perspective. You see it's all like fuzzy and it's like it's moving around. But as you can see Mike standing over her. You can see up in the window, up in the distance, like the ghosts are up in the window and she can see them in that moment blurry. It's not a clear vision, but she gets a little bit of a look from them. And at that point, I was kind of like, are they killing her off? Like, I really thought, like, is that how this is going to... So now, like, she's just going to be one of the ghosts while the widow has to live in the house? Like, I thought that's the direction it was going. I was like, this is not where I thought this was heading at all.
Yeah, they even do the tease later with the empty bed.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, that scene's great. It's a good misdirect. I will say, though, my favorite joke of the entire episode is right here, which is so specific and such a funny callback where the caveman, when he sees her down there, goes, he's killed Wild, which is because in the very first part of the episode where she comes out playing Kim Wilde, the Boy Scout guy goes, it's Kim Wilde about the song, but he doesn't know what that means.
Oh, yeah.
So he thinks that that's her name. So when he sees her dead, he's like, they killed Wilde. Meaning the whole time he thought her name was Kim Wilde. I thought that was such a funny written joke that is so, like, buried under if you weren't paying attention.
That went over my head.
Yeah, that like I like legit lolled at that. I was like, that is so specific, and no one is gonna get that. It's very funny.
So an ambulance takes her away, and now we're back in the house, and all of the ghosts are confronting Julian about the situation because he kind of like admits that
pushy or no pushy.
Yeah, pushy or no pushy. They're trying to figure out like if he intentionally did this or not, and this is also prompting Fanny to kind of open up about how she died. In the day that, like, you know, she passed, and she talks about her husband, George, and apparently he's the one who killed her because she caught him in the middle of a threesome with the groundskeeper and the butler. And then he was so worried that she was going to tell people that he pushed her out the window and killed her. And then I liked some of the ghosts there are older than her. So they saw it. They're like, oh, yeah, I was here for that.
That is so fucking funny. Yeah, I never said anything, but yeah, I saw that. Like, people who were there for 100 years clearly saw that.
So she was like, I never told a soul. I've kept this for all these years. Meanwhile, half the people there already knew about it.
That's the kind of writing that makes this show so great, is those little bitty details where you're like, that's so clever. Of course they would have seen it. You wouldn't think about it until they say it, and then you're like, well, fuck, that's perfect. There's also the Gordo part of the episode where they say, she was like, they had sex like a sandwich. He's like, oh, like a manwich? And like, oh, it's a Moroccan tea party. I was like, Gordo right now somewhere is screaming. There
was a moment where I guess they thought that by her finally telling her story that maybe she'd be like free of reenacting her own death.
She'd leave them.
Yeah.
But it did not work out that way. And they get the idea of like, you know what we could do? Let's just move the clock. So that you get that thing with Julian again, like, trying to just push the clock a little bit.
Just moving clock hands on a grandfather clock.
So now instead of her jumping out the window at 3 a.m., it's now 3 p.m. when she jumps out the window every day.
No, it's the morning.
Oh, was it morning? Okay, I thought it was
because when she jumps out, you hear the captain go, morning, everybody. So, like, they basically made her the alarm clock.
They made her cuckoo clock, yeah.
And then she gets up so confused because it's light out. Like, that scene is, the writing of the show is so fucking good.
From there, after we find out that whole gag with her jumping out the window now in the daytime, we get back to, like, a flash forward a couple weeks and we're in the hospital. And Allison's still in the hospital, but she's coherent now. She can walk around. She's awake. We found out that she was in an induced coma for about 2 weeks. And Mike says to his wife, like, I'm glad you didn't die. And she says, well, technically I actually did for a little bit, which I thought was a really clever line to throw in there, right?
At this point, I thought I had the moment where I was like, oh, does this show go on where she becomes a ghost and Mike lives there? And all the ghosts are there? Like, I had that, like, wait.
When she fell initially, I thought that's where they were going.
Yeah.
But at this point, I thought that was a really clever way to explain why she saw those ghosts in the background. But even then, we don't have the full reveal yet.
Yeah, that's the plot of The Frighteners. If you have a near-death experience, you can see the dead.
No, Michael J. Fox's The Frighteners?
That's a great movie.
It is a great movie.
Now we cut back to the house, and I forget what's going on. It's like, was she giving like a milking lesson? What was she telling them about? Like,
yeah, she was teaching them how to milk, but to take off the first layer, which is all brown, gross shit. So you get the white milk.
I have it written down. Hold on. No, it's yeah. You have to check if the milk is smooth and white, not beige and lumpy, which is what she says. And everyone is real bummed out about that comment.
Yeah.
That's like, we've talked about like bad experiences keeping you away from like dairy products. And I think if I ever took a sip of brown and lumpy milk, I think that's a wrap for me.
But yeah, then I'd be like, oat milk is great. Like, I'd be completely off of cow milk forever.
Do you think this is Food Club?
It could be Food Club.
Well, maybe. Yeah. Well, I know, because I don't think milking is part. You're not
She's the same one who like was teaching like the basket weaving class. So like, I don't know.
It's kind of like Ghost 4-H.
It is Ghost 4-H. I'll give you that.
I think what's happening is that because is it this point or was it earlier where they like where the Boy Scout is going around and being like, and then next week and then Thursday you're going to talk about this. Or and you're going to talk about eating an egg for the first time. And then the other one was like, I didn't like it. And he's like, please, please, please save it. So I think maybe they just do.
Yeah, that's Food Club. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He says, tomorrow Food Club will meet. And that's when they have the egg joke. That's why I said, I wonder if this is part of Food Club.
You remember when we talked about that scene earlier, right? Nope.
Nope.
Gordo, I'll take your vacant, silent stare as a no.
I didn't hear the Food Club. I just thought they were just sharing.
Whole thing.
Now, here's a question. Do you think, I mean, is that a bummer? Or do you think you crave food and miss food?
They have to because they can't interact with anything. So how would they even be able to eat?
Well, it's, I mean, I'm not saying that you can't. And obviously, you can't eat. But do you think that if you're dead like that, do you miss eating? Or like you're like imagine like we're all dead and that's been 100 years and we're all sitting here having a conversation about like chicken parm versus eggplant parm, and then we're all just like, fuck, I wish I could eat it. Or do you lose that sense of it?
I'm sure you lose hunger, but you probably miss the taste of food because that's why humans make food taste good in the first place. It's a good, like,
it tastes
you
good.
Enjoy eating.
Yeah, you enjoy it.
Well, I would imagine too that like if you're hanging around this house, you're seeing people cook at some point, right?
Sure, but
like,
can you smell?
I don't know.
Because so much of food cooking that you want it is like the smell. It's like coffee, food, right?
I'm trying to remember if they could smell Mary, because we know that Mary's thing is that she smells like burnt. So I don't know if they can smell that. Yeah, I don't know if they can smell that or if that's just something that people like in the mortal world can smell.
I'm going to go on the limb and say they have a lot of their like living qualities because they still sleep. So I would assume they still smell and still other stuff like that.
I will say, though, I always think about this sort of dumb stuff where it's like if I was a ghost. Sleep is important. You know why? Because it gets boring when you don't sleep. I've had insomnia before. I've had to take, like, sleeping pills. When you go, like, 3 or 4 days in a row where it's 3 a.m, no one is around, nothing is on TV, you start fucking losing your mind. That for eternity would be awful. There is nothing good that happens past midnight, between midnight and 7, you know?
They all have each other. Misery loves company.
True.
That's true.
So anyways, during this milking lesson, whatever is going on, is when the car pulls up and Mike and Allison are returning to the house, which they're all kind of shocked to see because they weren't even sure if Allison was alive at this point in time. And in the car is when we find out that Mike had the place surveyed. It was a thing that came up earlier. I don't know why it was like this big secret that he had the place surveyed. I think that's like a normal thing to have checked.
A level 3 building survey, which is a specific to the UK type of survey, which goes through all of the structural and like electrical and plumbing stuff, and then also gives you a breakdown of what the cost might be. So that's why he knows the level of it.
It was the reason why it was a secret, Jay, is because it didn't go well, and because she was in the hospital, he didn't want to stress her out, so he didn't. Okay,
that makes sense. Because I was like, he's like hiding it from her, but like that's very like they were gonna have to do that at one point. It wasn't like we never must know. So no, that does make sense.
I think it's like a no stress thing there, right? You went to the hospital and they're like, don't give him stress.
So what happens in the car is he reveals that he did have it surveyed. It's not good. It's going to be very expensive, but he took out a big personal loan and he's already hired some people to help work on these renovations. We see like the van pull up with all these contractors and stuff who are going to work on this house. Now, once they're out of the car, you have this shot now and Allison standing there as some of these contractors and stuff are walking by. Julian, the politician who pushed her, happens to be standing nearby, and she turns over to him, and she's like, hey, you need to have a hard hat on so she can see him. So now this is like I think they inched towards it. We saw like the figures in the background when things were fuzzy. We had her mention that she technically died for a minute, but this was the real reveal when she looks right at him and says something directly to him. So now we basically learn that when Julian pushed her, because she technically died for a finite amount of time, she has now unlocked the ability to see all these ghosts.
You know how great that is for them, though? They have someone on the outside now to get them stuff, to update the house. I know they don't want the hospital, I mean, they don't want the hotel there, but they can have, like, they want furniture, they want, like, lighting, they want
TV.
anything. Like,
Strike a compromise. Yeah, just be able to contact at all is a big advantage for them, yeah.
I like the idea, too, of, like, the two, like, later guys trying to think of, like, British stuff, too, where it's like, ooh, can you get some Gary Glitter music? And they're being like, oh, we don't want to talk about that. I don't know if we should talk about that. Like, all this stuff that's happened to Nick over time. Like, how's Lady Di doing? Like, fuck, I don't want to tell you about this. She wasn't killed by the crown because of paparazzi, was she? Like, no.
And now Julian is, like, shocked that she spoke to him and, like, runs off and tells all the other ghosts. And now we go back to Allison again, and she's talking to Mike and saying how she's having, like, second thoughts about this whole project and, you know, like, is it worth it? And, like, maybe they should have sold the house from the beginning. And Mike's like, no, like, you know, we're going to make your dreams come true. And while Mike's trying to comfort her and talk to her, like, while they're standing in this big room, you start to see, like, behind Mike, all these ghosts one by one are walking through the walls and entering the room. But now Allison can see each and every one of them as they're entering the room. So obviously he has no idea, but as he's talking and talking and talking, she's becoming more and more frightened because the room is filling with all these ghosts that are walking into the room and they're completely surrounding him. You know, Mike's trying to say, like, you know, like, he thinks her fear is the fear of the pressures of the house. And he's trying to say, like, no, I understand why you're scared. Basically, the last thing we get is she looks over and sees that headless body.
Just
like,
the
next
body.
to her. Yeah, just the body part. And, like, lets out, like, a wild scream. And then that cuts right into the credits.
I think the best way to end it, right? Like,
Yes.
I don't want to tip hands again or whatever, but, like, do you not want to see episode 2? Like, that's a great, like, you should watch the next episode type of ending.
right, and Nick, who's not here, Nick loves a good cliffhanger. Nick would greenlight it based on that.
You know, this ending kind of reminded me of, like, the Good Place. Almost kind
Agreed.
of the same premise, almost, but with that intense cliffhanger.
What we're getting here with and what's nice about it is, like we say, it's not even like quite cliffhangery. I mean, it is, but what it is the excitement of, oh, now we're gonna, like, delve into it. Like, now we're gonna get the real, like, her interacting with all these ghosts. What's that dynamic? What's gonna happen from this point forward? There's so many questions that you're left with at this point in time that you're, like, forced to want to watch that next episode, which is a really smart cutting point. We've talked about this in other shows. There's times where a show will be great and just it ends it on a weird note. Like, they don't know where to end it sometimes. They add an extra scene or, like, a shitty joke or something like that. And this was good. You got the big reveal and then right to the credits. And that's, like, it's a great way to just want to continue on.
Don't overstay your welcome. Yeah, like, when you end on a high note, don't fuck it up.
Yeah, you didn't need that. Like, so many shows feel that pressure, like they need to have she screams and then it cuts to a ghost and be like, what's she screaming for? And, you know, like,
Right.
You know, and, like,
why she's so afraid?
Yeah. And so I just think it was a great point to, like, just cut it right there and make the person want to watch that next episode. And that was it. That was the entirety of it. And
when shows end like this, does anybody else, like, my brain now just hears, like, bump, 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 ba-da-da. Like, I just hear the curb music whenever an episode ends like that every time now.
It was weird to not have, like, that. I mean, the world we live in now, to just not have that countdown to the next episode. You know, like,
right? Yeah,
Yes.
right. Because I'm so used to watching everything on, like, a different streaming service, and this is one of a one-off watch.
I have to find where to watch this. I really need to see what happens, and then I don't know if I'll hold off until the US one until next year, but I do want to finish this one.
Yeah, and like I said, I know it's gone 4 series. I don't know if it's continuing on or not. I forget off the top of my head.
I think it said it was done, because I think this is 2019 to 2020 or 2022.
Oh,
maybe,
it did have a
and I think
definitive
that-
end date, so they ended it after the 4th series.
I believe so.
That is one thing, and we've talked about that before too, like a big difference between, like, UK and US shows. Not only do UK series versus our seasons have way less episodes typically, but also they do not overstay their welcome on most shows. Even like these hit shows are like, nope, we're good. 2 seasons. That's all we wanted.
They tend to plan a start and a finish,
unless you're talking about Doctor Who.
Yes.
Or Red Dwarf.
Yeah, there's always exceptions to the rule.
There's exceptions. I will say we were driving the other day to run errands, and there was somebody who had, like, I forget what the number was, but I said it was something like the 9th Doctor, because you can have anything you want here. And I made a joke to my wife, and I was like, do you think that's a Doctor Who thing? And then I just typed in like the 9th Doctor to Google, and immediately popped up that it was just like, oh, from 1994 to 1987, the 9th Doctor was this Doctor in Doctor Who. I was like, holy shit, that really is what it is. This person is the nerdiest license plate of all time.
Ferg just said his name.
Yeah, it's Christopher Eccleston.
I don't think it was. This is from the mid 90s. I mean, that might have been the right one. Do you know them that well?
He's the 9th Doctor.
Is it? I mean,
can someone verify that?
10th is David Tennant. Look it up.
Look, it's the one from the mid 90s. I'm not saying it was 9th. I am not saying that you're wrong. I'm saying I don't remember exactly what. I don't know if it's in my search history. Hold on. Typing in Doctor is just gonna pull up all the terrible things where I'm looking at my phone at 3 a.m. and being like, "Am I gonna die?"
And just to like, and again to compare,
10th Doctor. It's a 10th Doctor.
Oh, David Tennant.
David Tennant, you're correct. From he started in
my favorite Doctor
Invasion in 2005, and he was in it until 2010.
I just want to compare again. Where you talk about like the exception to the rule shows, and you mentioned Red Dwarf. Red Dwarf, despite being around for over 30 years, only has like 74 episodes.
Yeah, it's a lot of gaps in time.
And it did end. It came back though.
Not the point. In all that time, 74 episodes have come out. In comparison, Hey Dude has 65 episodes.
Right, and it was for 4 years straight.
Right? So, like, you know, like that's a difference in time. Like, that's how we treat shows versus them in a lot of these situations.
And that is a show that has at least 7 different episodes with subplots about one kid being sad he can't skateboard in the sand. Like, there's not a lot of depth in Hey Dude.
It just that comparison of just like, you know, sheer amount of like episodes per season, how things, you know, how long things last. Because even then, like, even with those gaps for like, they've gone 12 seasons in our case, but 12 seasons of Red Dwarf has only lasted, you know, 70-something episodes. So it just completely
and over
different
35 years, I think. Yeah, I mean, like, Red Dwarf is kind of like follows along like our lifetimes, I think, pretty much.
Yeah, but even if they went 12 consecutive years, just that amount of episodes is so much shorter than what we would have on a 12-year run of a show here.
And to any of the listeners right now who are coming at us for the first time, who are big BBC fans, we did cover Red Dwarf, one of the greatest shows of all time, and it's in the archives.
We've got a few in our back pocket now. So
Red
Dwarf,
served.
We've done Faulty Towers, Are You Being Served?
Father Ted.
So yeah, we've got a few under our belt now.
The IT Crowd.
Yes, the IT Crowd.
Yeah, that was an early one.
I don't want to just start rambling on for the sake of it because, you know, our episodes get a little lofty anyways, but
yeah, like Ghost, let's just end.
Yeah. All right, cut to the credits. Bye. No, so we're going to do our greenlight or cancel. Obviously, we're a 4-man today, so depending on how the vote goes, and there's a potential tiebreaker, Nick's vote still counts, and that would be represented on a graphic that we usually post on our Instagram later in the week after the release of the episode. I have a strong feeling that his vote won't necessarily be the thing that decides whether or not this is a green light or a cancel. But with that in mind, we're going to go through it. I'm going to go in the order I see you in. Joe, starting with you.
We always talk about, like, would you watch the next episode, right? And then I sometimes think on top of that, would I want to watch an episode, like the next episode, and like ask my wife, like, hey, we should watch this? Or would I even say, hey, you should watch this, you'd enjoy it, it's not my thing. This for me is like, this was great, I want to watch more of this. I will rewatch the first one so we can watch it together and then binge through all of it, because I think you'll really like it too. I think that's a good sign where you can say, hey, look, I'd rewatch the first one with you so that we can catch up together. Like, when you're willing to rewatch the first episode of a show so you can catch somebody up and enjoy the experience together, I think that says, like, pretty much everything about it, right? And like I said earlier, it's King Ralph meets Faulty Towers meets Beetlejuice. How could anybody not love that premise? This is an amazing show. I'm so glad I know about it now, and it's a green light.
Gordo.
Yeah, this is a proper show. It's a green light. It's really well shot. Writing is really great, and it left you on a proper cliffhanger. Like, so regardless of other aspects of the show, you kind of want to just keep watching just based on the ending alone. Now, I don't know if future episodes stay this length. I kind of hope that they're a little bit shorter, but this episode didn't feel like it dragged on at all. I was captivated from point A to point B, from front to back. And I want to see, I might actually go and search this out and actually watch episode 2. So, green light from me.
Ferg.
Yeah, there's not much more to say that it hasn't already been said. I agree with Joe and Gordo. It's a green light from me. I love the it's a giant ensemble cast, but you get to know what every single one of them is about in a short time. I know it's a longer sitcom, but it's still a very short time to learn that many people, and you get a very good idea about them. The writing is very smart. Yeah, it's just perfect. I love British sitcoms. Yeah, nothing else to say. Green light.
For me, I typically don't love British sitcoms. And I will say that this is one of those things that we kind of talk about this over and over again. We didn't really say it today. Is it a sitcom? I don't know. I don't know if it's a sitcom, the way it's shot and stuff, but very funny, very well shot. The writing was great. Not many things I'd complain about. The only nitpicky thing I'd say is sometimes I thought the caveman was a little too cartoony for me compared to every other character. And I thought it could have been a little.
Did you want him to sell you Geico?
You're the caveman king. What are you talking about?
I prefer when my cavemen live in a modern world and work at an IKEA and play the Wii. But any event, no. I thought the show was really good. It was very clever. Like we said, it ended at a perfect point to be forced to want to watch the next episode. So it's a green light for me. So again, kind of suspected this. Regardless of Nick's vote, you already have 4 out of 5, so instant green light. So congratulations to Ghost. You do live on to see episode 2 from us. Again, I want to thank all of you guys who listen to us every week, and anyone who's new to us, continue to listen on for the rest of this month as we go over our spooky, dooky, unnamed, titled Halloween Oktoberfest of shows. We got 2 more in line for you, so keep listening in for those. But until next week, thank you guys so much for listening right now. Go to S1E1pod.com. That's where you can find all the links to our social media. Hit us up. Let us know what shows you want us to cover. Just tell us hello and tell us how you found us and things you like of the show and things you don't like. It's good to have those conversations. But thank you guys for listening. I won't keep rambling on. Thank you. Catch you again next week. Goodbye.
I think we got the best 91 election speech.